Prom night always feels bigger when you are living it. For 4 years, everybody talks about it like it is supposed to be the last perfect night of your life. The final chapter before adulthood. The last chance to be a kid before the world starts expecting things from you. By midnight, most people realize it is just another night. Parker Hale certainly was not thinking about life lessons as he walked across the crowded parking lot. He was thinking about food. The music from the gymnasium still echoed behind him while students gathered beneath the parking lot lights, taking pictures and saying long goodbyes that would probably be forgotten by next week. Lena walked beside him, her heels clicking against the pavement. She glanced sideways at Parker. "You seriously want burgers at 1 in the morning?" Parker shrugged, like the answer should have been obvious. "I have been thinking about burgers since 7. Lena rolled her eyes. "You were supposed to be dancing." Parker smirked. "I can multitask." Lena laughed and bumped his shoulder. Ahead of them, a loud voice echoed across the parking lot. "You all are acting like I committed a crime." Parker immediately groaned and said, "There he is." Connor Reese stood beside his truck with both hands spread dramatically in the air while two girls rolled their eyes and walked away. One of them was his date, or former date, depending on who you asked. Connor spotted Parker and pointed immediately. "Tell her I did nothing wrong." Parker did not even slow down and said, "No." Connor's voice sharpened. "You do not even know what happened." Parker's voice sharpened. "I know enough." Connor clutched his chest and said, "I cannot believe this. Betrayed by my own best friend." Lena folded her arms and asked, "Did you not spend half the dance flirting with a sophomore's cousin?" Connor paused and said, "That is irrelevant." "It is extremely relevant." Connor sighed dramatically and said, "Fine, maybe I made 1 or 2 small mistakes." Lena folded her arms. 3. Connor leaned forward between the seats. 2.5. Lena shook her head. 3. Connor opened the back door of the truck and said, "Whatever, I am free now." Lena's voice sharpened. "That is not how breakups work." Connor climbed into the back seat. "That is exactly how breakups work." Parker started the engine. Music immediately filled the truck. Connor turned it up even louder. The school slowly disappeared behind them as they pulled onto the main road. Street lights stretched ahead through the quiet town. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Connor talked too much. Lena made fun of him. Parker laughed so hard he nearly missed a turn. The kind of night that feels endless when you are 18. The kind of night you assume you will remember forever. Nobody noticed when Connor suddenly became quiet. It only lasted a few seconds, just long enough for him to stare out the window. Just long enough to notice a weathered sign pointing toward a narrow road disappearing into the darkness. Then the grin returned. "Oh no." Parker glanced into the rearview mirror and asked, "What?" Connor pointed toward the sign and said, "We should do it." Lena immediately shook her head and said, "No." Connor's voice sharpened. "We have not even said what it is." Lena's voice sharpened. "No." Connor leaned forward between the seats. Midnight Road. Parker laughed and said, "That sounds fake." Connor gave a nervous laugh. "It is absolutely real," Connor said. Parker glanced toward the road. "It is absolutely fake." Connor ignored him. "They say if you take the turn after midnight, your GPS stops working." Lena rolled her eyes. "That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard." Connor grinned. "That is not the scary part." The sign appeared again as they approached the intersection. Midnight Road. The letters reflected in the headlights. Connor pointed excitedly. "Come on, one drive. That is it." Parker glanced toward the road. Nothing but darkness, trees, and a narrow stretch of pavement disappearing into the woods. Lena looked at him and said, "Do not." Connor looked at him and said, "Do it." Parker smiled. Then he turned the wheel. The turn felt harmless at first. That was the part Parker would remember later. Not the fear, not the fog, not the way Connor's laughing stopped like someone had reached into his chest and pulled the sound out by the root. He would remember how normal the turn felt. The truck rolled off the main road and onto the narrow pavement beneath the trees. The headlights swept across weeds, a leaning mailbox with no house behind it, and a ditch filled with black water. Connor leaned back in the seat, smiling like he had just won something. "See? Nothing happened." Lena turned in her seat and gave him a look. She said, "We have been on the road for 5 seconds." Connor lifted both hands. "And already I feel alive." Lena shot him a look. "You are ridiculous." Connor looked out the window. I am legendary. Parker grinned and kept driving. The road was tight, but not dangerous. At least not yet. It curved gently between the woods with no center line and no streetlights. The trees grew close on both sides, their branches meeting over the truck like the ribs of a tunnel. Music played low through the speakers. Connor tapped his fingers against the window. Lena took one shoe off and rubbed the back of her heel. My feet are killing me, she said. Connor's smile faded. Beauty is pain. You wore sneakers. Comfort is also beauty. Parker laughed. The farther they drove, the quieter the world seemed to get. The town disappeared behind them so completely that it felt impossible they had been near a school only minutes before. The music still played, but softer now, like the truck was moving away from the sound instead of carrying it. Lena noticed first. She reached for the volume knob. The numbers on the screen moved up, but the music stayed low. Parker frowned and said, "That is weird." Connor leaned forward. "Oh, here we go." "No," Lena said quickly. "Do not get excited." "I am not excited." "You are absolutely excited." Connor grinned. "Maybe a little." The road bent left. Parker followed it. Then the screen on the dashboard flickered. The music cut out. For a second, the cab filled with nothing but tire noise and the soft hum of the engine. Then the screen came back on. No music, no station, just static. Connor whispered, "Okay." Lena folded her arms tighter. "It is a dead spot. We are in the woods." Parker glanced at his phone mounted near the vent. The map was still open, but the blue route had frozen. The little arrow that should have shown the truck's location spun slowly in place. He tapped the screen. Nothing. He tapped it again. The phone went black. "Battery?" Lena asked. It was at 80%. Connor leaned between the seats. "The legend says the GPS stops first." Parker looked at him in the mirror. "You are not helping. I am literally explaining the situation. You are enjoying the situation." "Both can be true." Lena reached into her purse and pulled out her own phone. She lifted it, searching for signal, then frowned. No bars. Connor pulled his phone from his jacket. His smile faded a little. "Mine too." Parker slowed the truck. The road ahead was still visible, but barely. A pale mist had begun to gather near the pavement, drifting low across the headlights. It moved in soft ribbons over the blacktop, curling around the tires, slipping into the ditch. Lena looked through the windshield. "Maybe we should turn around." Parker wanted to say yes immediately, but the road was narrow and the shoulders were soft. The trees pressed close. There was no driveway, no clearing, no safe place to make a clean turn. "I will find a spot," he said. Connor was quiet now. That made Parker more nervous than anything else. They drove another minute. The fog thickened. Not enough to blind them, but enough to make the woods look farther away than they were. Branches appeared and vanished. Fence posts leaned out of the mist like tired men. Once, Parker thought he saw a house set back between the trees, but when the headlights passed over it, there was nothing there but trunks and vines. Lena rubbed her arms. "Did it get cold?" Parker reached for the heat. The vents blew air, but it was cool. He turned the knob higher, still cool. Connor looked out his window. "Do you guys hear that?" Parker listened. At first, only the engine. Then something else. A faint sound behind the truck. A bark. One sharp bark far back down the road. Lena stiffened and said, "Nope." Connor swallowed. "That sounded like a dog." "It is probably a dog," Parker said, though he did not believe it. "Whose dog?" Lena asked. "There are no houses. Farm dogs wander." "On prom night? On a creepy road after midnight?" Connor gave her a small smile and said, "So you admit it is creepy?" Lena's voice sharpened. "I admit you are annoying." The dog barked again, closer this time. Parker looked in the rearview mirror. The road behind them was gone. Not dark. Gone. Fog filled the mirror so completely it looked like the truck had no past. Just a wall of white pressing close behind the taillights. Parker stepped on the gas. The truck moved faster. The dog barked again. Now it sounded like it was running. Lena grabbed the armrest. "Parker, I know." The road curved again. This time a sign appeared on the right. It stood crooked in the weeds, old wood nailed to an old post. "Midnight Road." Parker's mouth went dry. Lena whispered, "That was the sign from the turn." Connor stared at it as they passed. No, it was not. Yes, it was. "No," Connor said, and his voice had lost all of its joking. "That sign was metal." Parker looked at him in the mirror. Connor's face had gone pale. The fog opened ahead. For a second, the road widened. Parker saw a patch of gravel on the left, enough space to turn around. Relief hit him so hard he almost laughed. There. He pulled toward it. The truck bumped off the pavement. The tires crunched over gravel. Then the headlights swept across something standing at the edge of the clearing. Parker slammed the brakes. A boy stood in front of them. He looked about 10 or 11, thin, barefoot, dressed in a white shirt and dark pants that hung too short at the ankles. His hair was wet and stuck to his forehead. Mud streaked his shins. One sleeve was torn at the shoulder. For one impossible moment, nobody moved. The boy stood with his head tilted down, face hidden in shadow. Lena whispered, "Oh my God." Connor's voice came from the back seat, barely audible. "Is that a kid?" Parker's hand moved toward the door handle. Lena grabbed his wrist. "Do not. He is a kid. Do not get out." The boy lifted his head. Parker stopped breathing. His eyes were not glowing. They were not black. They were not empty. That would have been easier. They were scared. A child's eyes, full of panic and tears. He raised one hand and pointed toward the trees. Then his mouth opened. The voice did not come through the glass. It came from the radio speakers. "Help me find him." Static swallowed the words. Lena screamed. Connor cursed and pushed himself back against the seat. Parker threw the truck into reverse. The tires spun. Mud and gravel sprayed. The truck did not move. He pressed harder. The engine roared. The boy remained in the headlights, one hand raised, pointing into the trees. Behind him, something barked. Not far away now, not behind them. Inside the woods. A dog whining followed the bark. Soft, hurt, desperate. The boy turned toward the sound. "Please," he said through the radio. Parker's hand shook on the gear shift. Lena was crying now, quietly, like she was trying not to make too much sound. Connor leaned forward. "Parker, drive." "I am trying." "Drive forward. He is in front of us." "Then go around him." Parker looked at the boy. The boy looked back. The headlights flickered. For half a second, Parker saw the boy differently, not standing, falling, one hand reaching upward. A dark circle of stone behind him, water shining below. Then the light steadied, and he was only a boy again. Parker jerked the wheel hard and hit the gas. The truck lurched forward. Lena screamed again as the front bumper passed close enough to the boy that Parker thought they would hit him. But they did not. The boy vanished. The truck bounced back onto the road. Parker did not slow down. Nobody spoke for a while. The only sound was breathing. Hard breathing. Shaking breathing. Connor was the first to talk. "Okay," he said. "Okay. I know this is going to sound bad." Lena turned on him. "If you say this is cool, I will climb back there and hurt you." "I was not going to say that." "What were you going to say?" Connor swallowed. "I have heard this story before." Parker's grip tightened around the wheel. "The road?" "No. The boy." Lena stared at him. Connor looked down at his hands. "My grandma used to talk about him when she got sick. Not like a bedtime story, more like she was seeing him. She would wake up and say there was a boy by the well and he could not find his dog." The fog slid over the hood. Parker forced himself to keep his eyes on the road. "Why did you not mention that before?" "Because I thought it was old people stuff." Lena made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Old people stuff?" "I know. You brought us onto a haunted road connected to your grandma's nightmare, and you thought it was old people stuff?" "I did not know it was connected." Parker kept his eyes forward. "What else did she say?" Connor hesitated. "What else, Connor?" "She said, if you hear the dog, do not follow it." The dog barked again. This time, it sounded beside the truck. Lena clapped both hands over her ears. Parker's heart hammered in his chest. The road straightened ahead, and in the distance, a red light blinked. A stop sign. Relief flared. Parker tightened his grip on the wheel. There. Intersection. He sped toward it. As they got closer, the fog thinned enough for them to see the sign clearly. But it was not a stop sign. It was an old railroad crossing light hanging over the road from a rusted pole. The red bulb blinked slowly. On. Off. On. Off. There were no tracks. The road simply passed beneath it. Parker slowed despite himself. The bell began to ring, a dull metallic clanging that echoed through the woods. Connor whispered, "Why is there a train crossing with no tracks?" Lena's voice sharpened, "Do not stop." Parker did not plan to. Then the truck died. The engine cut off. The headlights stayed on. The radio went silent. The truck rolled under the blinking red light and stopped on its own. Parker turned the key. Click. Again. Click. Again. Nothing. The bell kept ringing. On the right side of the road, the fog shifted. A dog stepped out. It was medium-sized, maybe some kind of mutt, dark fur soaked flat against its body. One ear stood up, the other folded over. Its paws were muddy. Around its neck hung a torn collar. It looked at them through the passenger window. Lena whimpered. The dog did not growl. It did not bare its teeth. It wagged its tail once. Then it limped toward the woods. Connor leaned closer to the glass. "No." Lena grabbed his jacket. "Do not even think about it." Connor's face was strange. Not excited, not scared exactly. Pulled, like some invisible thread had looped around his ribs. Connor swallowed hard. "He is hurt. It is not a real dog. You do not know that." "Connor." The dog stopped at the tree line and looked back. The bell rang louder. The red light blinked. Parker grabbed Connor's arm over the seat. "Stay in the truck." Connor blinked, like waking up. Then the radio crackled. A woman's voice came through, old, shaking. "Blue." Connor froze. The woman cried softly, "Blue, come back here." Parker looked at Connor in the mirror. Connor's lips parted. "That is my grandma." The voice on the radio whispered, "Do not let him go down there." The dog barked. The boy appeared behind it, half hidden between two trees. "Help me find him," he said. Connor pulled at the door handle. The lock clicked open by itself. Lena screamed, "No!" Parker lunged across the seat and grabbed Connor's sleeve with both hands. Connor pushed the door open a few inches. Cold fog poured into the truck. The smell hit them at once. Wet leaves, rust, old water, something rotten beneath stone. Parker shouted, "Connor!" Connor shook his head violently, his eyes filled with tears. "I can hear her." The voice on the radio said, "Connor, baby, help him." That broke whatever hold it had. Connor froze. His face changed from grief to horror. "My grandma never called me baby." He slammed the door shut. The locks clicked down. The dog stopped wagging its tail. The boy lowered his hand. The bell stopped. The red light went dark. For 1 second, the woods held perfectly still. Then something slammed against the roof of the truck. All three of them screamed. The truck rocked on its shocks. Something dragged across the metal above them, slow, heavy. Parker ducked instinctively. Lena curled into herself. Connor stared upward with both hands over his mouth. A wet handprint slid down the windshield, small, child-sized. Then another, and another. The windshield filled with muddy prints. Parker turned the key again. The engine roared to life. He did not think. He hit the gas. The truck shot forward beneath the dead crossing light. The muddy handprint streaked upward and vanished into the fog. The road twisted and dropped. Parker drove too fast. Branches slapped the sides. Gravel sprayed under the tires. Lena kept whispering prayers under her breath. Connor kept looking behind them, but the back window showed only fog. Then the road ended. Parker slammed the brakes. Ahead of them stood an old house, or what was left of one. The roof sagged inward. The windows were black holes. The porch leaned like it was tired of holding itself up. Vines crawled over the siding and the front steps disappeared beneath weeds. But the strangest part was the light. A single warm light glowed in an upstairs window. Parker stared. Lena whispered, "No." Connor's voice was thin. "I know this house." Parker slowly turned to look at him. "What do you mean you know this house?" Connor shook his head. "I do not know. I just do." The radio flickered on. Static. Then music. Old music. Not from the dance. Not from any station Parker knew. A soft song played, scratchy and distant, like it came from a record spinning in another room. A man's voice joined it. "Ruth, where is your brother?" Connor went still. Parker barely breathed. The man's voice came again, angrier. "Ruth." A girl's voice sobbed, "I do not know." The upstairs light flickered. Connor whispered, "Ruth was my grandma's name." Lena looked ready to be sick. Parker wanted to reverse, but he was afraid the truck would not let him. The front door of the house opened, not all the way, just enough to show darkness. Then a girl stepped onto the porch. She looked 13, maybe 14. Her dress was soaked. Her hair hung in two dark braids. Mud covered her knees. She looked straight at Connor. "I am sorry," she said. Connor opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The girl lifted a trembling hand and pointed toward the side of the house. The fog moved. Behind the house, in a clearing, something round and low emerged from the dark. A stone well. Lena began crying harder. Parker whispered, "We are leaving." He shifted into reverse. The truck obeyed. It rolled backward slowly. The girl on the porch did not move. The boy appeared beside her. Then the dog. Then other people. A young woman in a torn denim jacket. A man in a muddy suit. A couple holding hands. A boy in a baseball uniform. A woman with one shoe missing. They stood in silence on the porch and in the yard, all of them wet, all of them watching the truck back away. Connor whispered, "They are not trying to scare us." Lena snapped, "What?" "They are warning us." The truck hit something. A hard bump from behind. Parker looked in the mirror. A stone well stood in the road behind them. He turned back toward the house. The well behind the house was gone. Parker's stomach dropped. The well had moved. The radio voice returned. Not the old man this time. A child's voice. "One of you has to tell." Connor shut his eyes. "No." The voice repeated, "One of you has to tell." Lena wiped her face. "Tell what?" The boy stepped off the porch. The wet dog followed him. The girl named Ruth stayed where she was, crying silently. The boy came closer until he stood just beyond the hood. He pointed at Connor. Connor shook his head. "I do not know." The boy's voice came through the radio. "You do." Connor pressed his fists against his eyes. "I do not. You know her. My grandma?" "She ran." Connor flinched. Parker looked at him. Lena looked at him. Connor whispered, "She used to say that." "What?" Parker asked. Connor's voice shook. Whenever she was half asleep, she would say, "I ran. I ran. I ran." The boy lowered his hand. The dog whined. The girl on the porch covered her face. Parker realized then that the ghosts were not repeating a story. They were stuck inside the moment before the truth, and the road had brought them someone connected enough to pull it loose. Connor reached for the door. This time, Parker did not grab him. Lena did. Connor, no. He looked at her. His eyes were wet but clear. "If this is my family, I have to know." "You do not have to die for family secrets." That stopped him. The radio crackled. The child's voice whispered, "Not die." Static. "Tell." Connor looked at Parker. Parker did not know what to say. Part of him wanted to lock the doors and floor the gas until the truck broke apart. Another part of him understood something he did not want to understand. The road was not letting them go because it had not brought them there only to scare them. It had brought them there as witnesses. Parker reached into the center console and pulled out the small flashlight he kept for emergencies. Connor took it. Lena cursed under her breath, kicked her other heel off, and opened her door. Parker stared at her. "What are you doing?" "I am not letting him walk into the haunted woods alone." Connor gave a weak laugh. "That is actually kind of sweet. Do not make me regret it." Parker turned off the truck, though the engine had already begun sputtering like it wanted to die anyway. He stepped out last. The cold wrapped around him immediately. The fog was colder than the air should have been. It clung to his suit jacket, dampened his hair, slipped under his collar. The ground beneath his dress shoes was soft and muddy. The house loomed ahead. The well waited behind them. The boy pointed toward the side yard. Parker's voice sharpened. "Stay together." Connor nodded. Lena grabbed Parker's sleeve with one hand and Connor's with the other. "I swear, if either of you starts acting possessed, I am knocking you out." Parker looked at him in the mirror. "Fair." They followed the boy. He moved without sound. The dog limped beside him. Every few steps, it looked back to make sure they were coming. They passed the porch. The girl named Ruth watched Connor with hollow, terrified eyes. Connor slowed. She whispered, "I was scared." He stopped. "I know. I did not mean for him to fall." Connor's face twisted. The boy did not turn around. The dog kept walking. Ruth whispered, "I told him he ran after Blue." Connor looked at Parker and Lena. There it was. The truth. Or the beginning of it. Ruth continued, voice breaking. But Blue had already fallen. Elias went down after him. I was supposed to get farther. I did not. I watched, I waited, then the stones moved. The fog pressed closer. Parker's flashlight flickered. Lena leaned closer. The stones moved? Ruth nodded, like something opened its mouth. For a long moment, no one moved. The truck sat in the road with the engine running, headlights pointed toward the fog, and the three of them breathing like they had just climbed out of deep water. Connor stared at the dog tag in his hand. The little silver piece of metal looked ordinary now. Too ordinary. It did not glow, it did not shake, it did not whisper. But Parker knew what they had seen. Lena knew too. And Connor knew most of all. Parker put the truck in drive. This time, the road let them move. The fog thinned slowly, peeling away from the windshield in pale strips. The trees pulled back. The pavement widened. A street light appeared ahead, humming softly above a real intersection. Lena began to cry again, not loudly, but in the exhausted way people cry when their body finally believes it survived. Connor closed his fist around the tag. "We have to tell someone," he said. Parker looked at him in the mirror. "Tell them what?" Connor's voice was quiet. "The truth." Nobody argued. They drove until the school lights, the diner sign, and the normal world came back into view. But none of it felt as safe as it had before. Because now they knew something. Some roads do not stay buried just because people stop saying their names. Some stories do not die just because the witnesses grow old. And sometimes, when a family secret has been quiet for too long, it finds the youngest person willing to listen. By the time Parker pulled into the diner parking lot, the sky was beginning to turn gray. Connor opened his hand one more time. The dog tag had changed. The name Blue was still on one side. But on the back, new letters had appeared. They were scratched deep into the metal, dark and wet, as if written from inside the road itself. Elias was not the first. Connor stopped breathing. Lena saw it and whispered, "What does that mean?" The radio, which had been dead since the road, crackled softly. A child's voice came through the speakers. "Not Elias. You told his story." Static filled the truck. Then the voice whispered again, "Now tell mine." Parker turned off the engine, but the radio kept playing.